Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a Baller.
Welcome in. We are in February here on the Dynasty Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined by Mike Wright and Matthew Betz.
February only means one thing, Kyle. Rookies. I mean, that's what it means, right? Like this Sunday, I guess there's a game going on. Who cares, right?
We've been over this, Betz. It's the big game.
The big game. I did hear you guys reference that on the main show. Are you aware that the game, just the game, not the big game, but the game in college football world is Ohio State, Michigan?
Oh, that's the game?
It's the nickname of the game, the game.
Do they call it the game or do they go the, like when they say Ohio State?
No, they have the normal the.
But the big game was Cal and Stanford. I knew that growing up. That was the John Elway game, and where Cal storms back and they get the lateral touchdown. The big game is that game. So is there any like copyright infringement there?
We'll get our legal team on that.
I mean, were they as clairvoyant as like who actually got three-peat? Someone like, was it Jackson, or I thought there was like some weird Pat Riley might own it or something. I don't know. To
get a three-peat as the like
to have the rights. No, like the three-peat is trademarked.
Man,
one of them got it.
This is news to me.
I don't know, man. I don't know. This is good stuff. People are loving this banter.
Well, at some point, you get to be at a level in society where you get to trademark pretty much anything you want because people love you and adore you. And I think that's how people feel about rookies. And at this point, all of the rookies, everything I'm seeing out there, it's glorious. It's wonderful. Everything is great about this class.
Oh, Kyle.
Because we already entered this class isn't that great. Now we're in the spot where everyone goes, well, maybe it's not as bad as you think. And so now I'm seeing a lot of flowery
I see what
stuff.
You're saying. Yeah.
Just wait, Kyle. Just wait. In about, what is it? It's early February. I would give it about 3 or 4 weeks. Just wait till this guy, does he even love football? Can he even be drafted this year? Doesn't really watch the tape. So, yeah, it's so funny, the ebbs and flows. It's like every draft cycle you can put in pen, some sort of character concern coming up. I don't know, man. Scouts are higher than you think on this quarterback. He might sneak in the back of the first round. It's so funny how it's like the same thing every year. But I love it. Draft season is so fun, man. And being able to kind of just take it all in and, filter it all is a skill, I think, but really fun.
You guys saw the quote, because I think it went in our company Slack I don't remember the player, but it was like, apparently the dad or whatever of the player.
Oh, Ty Simpson.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
That's what it was?
Alabama quarterback.
So everything that he has heard is all the GMs and scouts have him as a first round grade. And then it's like, but all the GMs that I've talked to have them not even close to a first round grade. It's like man, these kids, and they're just getting lied to. I mean, we don't know how the whole Shedeur Sanders process went, but we know that almost every single mock draft in existence had him going at least in the first round, and not where he went the fifth. Am I remember 4th or the 5th?
5th.
And it's like, what? Something happened along the way of you don't leave the college right now if you're like, hey, you're going to be a 5th rounder. Like Shedeur would be making more money had he stayed in college. He probably be happier with his life and where he is compared to where he is now. But like it's so weird, the disconnect of the information that these people are given.
But imagine the value the team got of selecting a Pro Bowler in the 5th round. They technically, I don't know if you saw,
I did.
There were 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks from that team this year. Flacco.
I mean, Stefanski.
I know.
Getting fired when he had 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks on the roster. I mean, that's unheard of.
And then getting hired. I mean, that is the stat I want to share with people. This guy developed Pro Bowl quarterbacks despite having like 4 or 5 wins. That's impressive. Like that in itself is really hard to do.
Man, what happened to the game we love? I mean,
I don't know,
what is
man.
the point of the Pro Bowl anymore? If we're being totally honest.
No one knows.
Like I think it's
No one
fine to
knows.
recognize the best players in the league, obviously, but like at this point, don't even bother doing anything on the field because it's just not. It's not serious.
I remember as a child when I played Madden, the Pro Bowl rosters were a very big deal and a big part of the game. And a part
the
of
Pro Bowl was a big deal when we were young.
Yes. Yeah, if you want to go look for like 90s photos of the Pro Bowl, everyone's wearing their bucket hats. Like it was cool stuff.
Sean Taylor. Oh, brother, that hit in the Pro Bowl. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
On the punter.
Yeah.
They don't play it the way they used to.
No, it's very different. We are a couple of days away, as we mentioned, from the big game. And this Sunday, if you want to watch the game, props to you. What will be out, what I can promise you, is that if you want to pre-order the UDK, the first release of the Dynasty Pass will be open.
Did you say props to you like you're not going to watch the Super Bowl?
I'm trying to make sure that the part that's most important gets emphasized.
All right. It was weird. Sounded weird.
My wife did ask about, she goes, wait, there's no, like this past weekend, she didn't understand why there was no football. She's like, I kind of miss it because it's just background noise and she usually takes a nap or something. And then I was explaining it's this Sunday.
That's her soothing white noise.
Oh, for sure. She can easily fall asleep to any football game. It's very, very easy. But then this Sunday we have one coming up and she goes, oh, I had no idea. Like no clue of the calendar, what's going on. Not a big deal. But the Dynasty Pass will be released in its first iteration. First, we'll release before the Combine, after the Combine, and then after the NFL Draft. But our team is hard at work. If you want to go to ultimatedraftkit.com, you can get everything we have, all the production profiles, our rookie mock, which, by the way, I am on the clock currently for our mock that will be released. Team opportunities, everything else that you can see, the contracts for every single team, it's there in the Dynasty Pass. Anything you want to say real quick, Mike, about the Dynasty Pass?
Just the Dynasty Pass, we make it hopefully as simple as possible for you to get into to get the information you need to know about these prospects. You can get bogged down a little bit too much with too much information about these guys, but we're giving you the information that we have right now, what we're using it to base our opinions off of, and then those opinions evolve and change because not next month, but Combine's like late February. I don't know, whatever. About a month or so, there will be another update because we will have risers and fallers from the NFL Combine where someone will run really, really fast and all of a sudden they'll just be a first round pick. And we will come on here and we will say, they should not be. Guys, look at this stuff that don't fall for it. Been crushing that 2 years in a row of speedy guys at the Combine shooting up into the first round. But then, of course, after the NFL Draft, that's when stuff really changes and the rookie rankings will be a little bit more secure. And we'll be telling you exactly if I'm in a draft, this is how I'll likely be drafting these guys.
Yep.
The other thing with the Dynasty Pass this weekend, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, we'll have initial for this version of this offseason startup ranks in there, correct? As well as rookie
Dynasty
rankings.
startup ranks. Those have been getting touched up and worked on this week by the three of us.
Beautiful.
Yep. UltimateDraftKit.com. Before we get into our main talking points today, we're going to talk about production profiles and some of the interesting names from this class. I did want to kind of zoom out and ask the question, what have you learned so far, or just over the last couple of years of doing this, in the rookie scouting process? So we are moving from production profiles to, we'll start talking about film in the next couple of weeks. These, we saw this game, this player played in this game, this really stood out to me. Then we'll start to match some potential draft capital. There's a process to it. So what is something you've learned doing this last couple of years that you think, hey, I want someone to understand this? So Betz, start us off.
Yeah, I kind of jokingly brought it up at the start of the show, but I do think in all seriousness, like being able to drown out the noise over the next 3 months is a very important skill when it comes to what we're doing. Now, there's a lot of things that it's easy to get stuck in the weeds on certain players, and it's very easy to get caught up in the hype of the latest headline from national reporters, agents, all the sort of things that you'll see. And what I mean by that is some of the stuff that comes out, and I jokingly said it, like character concerns. Last year, remember it was Tedero McMillan. It's like, does this guy even love football? He doesn't love to watch tape. He doesn't watch film. 8th overall pick in the draft, right?
Here's this clip from years ago about him
Right.
talking about film, and
Right.
make sure if you're seeing anything, make sure you know that it's recent and not something that like we were already past.
For sure. And then, like you talked about at the combine, right? Some of the stuff that we know over years of data doesn't really matter that much. NFL wide receiver, 40 time in and of itself doesn't really matter. Yet Matthew Golden carried that impressive college football playoff into the air quotes 4.2940. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my goodness, how can we not get this guy, right? So being able to just like filter out the noisy stuff that happens over the next 3 months. I used to just follow every headline. I cared a lot about every headline. And at the end of the day, 90% of that stuff doesn't matter at all. What matters is the stuff that is the hard and fast data, right? Like what we see in the production profiles we'll talk about today, the NFL draft capital, some of your film takes, some of that stuff. And, you know, like I joked about it every offseason, we get the cycle of like, this guy's going higher than you think. This guy's going lower than you think. His interview went great. He interviewed terribly. Like you just hear every end of everything for every one of these prospects, and really not getting stuck in that unimportant stuff, I do think is a skill when it comes to Dynasty drafts and rankings and all that sort of stuff. And if you guys remember, like even into the summer, we get some of this just honestly stupid stuff. Jamar Chase's rookie year, do you guys recall the headlines of like, he's struggling with drops in camp because the NFL ball doesn't have the white lines on it?
Yes.
Guys.
Yes.
What are we doing? Like, so being able to filter out that stuff is really, really important this time of year.
I'll throw out, whenever we talk about comps for a player, I just want to be clear, it provides a range and not an endpoint of a player. If anything, when we're describing a player, we're seeing something on film and we're saying, oh, this player looks like a player that I've seen before and it's kind of similar, but we're using what we've seen before as like the main data point, when it's like, I've never seen this player in the NFL. He has never, like Denzel Boston has never played in the NFL. It's really easy for me to look at him and what he did at Washington and go, I've seen a player that's similar in size to him that had a lot of 50-50 balls. He kind of reminds me of Rome Odunze. It's like, well, of course, that's going to be the easy comparable. And the one we've been joking about over and over again, Mekhi Lemon is going to get the same comparison of another slot receiver from USC, Amon-Ra St. Brown. But comps kind of provide a range and not an endpoint. So whenever we describe a player that way, I was trying to find a comp for Jeremiah Love. We'll talk about running backs next week, but it almost felt out of date. When I watched the film, I compared his size, compared to his style, and I was like, man, I feel like he's LaShawn McCoy with a little more giddy up. And I'm like, I feel like that comp doesn't matter that much anymore to people. To me, and like where I started with fantasy football and where I started with football, like that matters a lot. But I'm trying to give a range of what this player could be, not he is LaShawn McCoy. So keep that in mind when we're describing players.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Mine's more just philosophical of like how you play the game, how you play Dynasty, how you evaluate how you weigh information. You know, because we are both, like we're in analytics and film. We aren't. And now I'm sure, you know, we all kind of skew a percentage. It's like I would say I'm more on analytics side than the film when it comes into my process. But it's like you're playing, you're in control, man. Like this is your team. These are your rookies that you're going to be drafting. So while like I hope that we're giving you good advice and good analysis and help point you in right direction. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. You know what I mean? Of like being like when it comes to rookies, being what's the way to format it? Liking a guy and it doesn't work. That to me, anyways, that feels not nearly as bad as when I don't like a guy, but then I'm told I have to go in on that guy in the like. You're the 105, man. How do you not draft so and so? You're like, if you don't pick this wide receiver here, you're going to look real stupid to everyone else. And you being wrong on that is infinitely worse to me than when I like a player and I end up I'm wrong. I whiff on that guy. So it's your roster. Make sure you're living your life how you want to live your life.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're going to hear so many different statistical thoughts, film thoughts, comparisons, all those things. It's really hard to figure out which one you should weigh more or less. But when they start stacking up, like, the red flags start stacking up, like I have certain part of my process where for receivers, if you're really, really, you didn't earn targets at an elite level, that's a red flag. That's not the only issue in college, though, that it's like, okay, well, because Brian Thomas Jr. didn't see 20% targets per out run, he's dead to me. It's like, no, that's one thing in college with Malik Neighbors on his team that he didn't do well. So don't just take one stat that we say today or any podcast or what you see out there in Twitter and just say that is now this player's I'm in or I'm out, because you're going to see a ton of those this year. So for Matthew Golden, the example we keep giving, it was, okay, the 40 time, that's cool. That's going to help his draft stock for the NFL. We have to add that in. But I'm also weighing against these other things. So we'll try to give you a menu of things. And at the end of the day, we might just be playing wrong about a player. Like that's part of it.
We will, but we'll get some right too.
Yeah.
This was, last year around this time, this was the guys. How does Cam Scadaboo not work in the NFL? Like all the production profile, everything you can dive in analytically, watching him on tape, and it's like the knock I can give you is when I'm watching him on tape, I don't know why it's working so well, because the man is not overwhelming with athleticism. He is a running back. And we just kept saying it over and over on this show that until the NFL tells us they don't like this guy, I'm just going to keep ranking him real high. And then the NFL draft told us they didn't really like Cam Scadaboo, and it was like that felt bad to be so in on a player and then have the NFL say, no, you're wrong, only to find out weeks into the season, you're like, no, we were right. You were wrong, NFL. So we're going to keep doing it our way.
And now, post-injury and plus Matt Nagy, it could go a different direction.
Yeah. It could.
We don't talk about that guy.
I had to throw out Matt Nagy, though. I had to throw that in there real quick.
Yeah, just these guys still getting jobs.
We'll see.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk about some production profiles. So one of the things that we're going to be doing today is looking at the production profiles that we have in the Dynasty Pass. What you can do is you can go position by position and sort by, here's their counting statistics. So they have this many receptions compared to the rest of the class. You can look at their usage, like here's the type of target share they're seeing. But what we really care about is what translates to fantasy. So we've looked over the last decade and said, if somebody is a quarterback one in fantasy, they're a top 12 quarterback, or man, this person has the production of an Alvin Kamara. This is the type of stuff that translates to the NFL, because Alvin Kamara, I know seems really old now, but like a monster for fantasy for almost a decade straight. What did he do in college? And then how can we compare that to some of these other guys? So that's part of the process we're doing today. Last thing I'll say is there are a lot of buckets you can organize players into. And sometimes they're going to fit in, he scored a ton of touchdowns, and that's a really good bucket. And then other times you look at their, wow, this dude's 24 years old. That's not a great bucket if you're a running back. So
right,
it's going to ebb and flow. We're going to talk about some things that are awesome for these players and then some red flags, including a player that I stumbled upon today that I go, I haven't heard a red flag about this player today, and I'm a little worried.
Oh.
So that's my
wait, things are too good? That's what's worrying you?
It's too good. No, this one's...
It's almost too quiet.
I brought up to Betz. I whispered it to him, and it could work. So let's jump in.
Hey, rookie. Welcome to the NFL.
We are going to have entire episodes devoted to the running back position. That one's coming up next week. We'll talk about quarterbacks, tight ends. We'll have a couple of episodes on the wide receivers because this is a little bit of a deeper class to talk through some of those deeper names. Quarterback, we're not going to spend a lot of time here because the production that translates from college to the NFL really comes down to a couple things. Do you have experience, and did you run the ball? So this class doesn't really give us a ton of names to work with, and that's kind of sad. But the experience thing has started to kind of creep up where I feel like
we got spoiled from 2024.
Yeah, we used to have the conversation, man, if you're young, how good are you going to be like 3 or 4 years from now? And then it was like, oh, if you only started like 15 games in college, that's kind of a red flag, right?
Yes.
That's the whole thing against Ty Simpson right now. 1-year starter at Bama. Who knows? And in the recent trend of guys that come out without a lot of experience in college, whether it be just raw number of pass attempts, some people like to filter for that, for their production type stuff, or just number of games started or what have you. The hit rate on those guys is really bad. And obviously the two that hurt the most recently in our world that we live in, Anthony Richardson, right? Didn't have a ton of experience at Florida, but it was like, you can see it for fantasy. Like if he's on the field, and when he was on the field, he was great. But now there's just like, is he even in the league in 2 years, right? Trey Lance just never happened. But we were all enthralled with what if, and the Niners were enthralled with that. So there's been a lot of, I think, recent, the pendulum has swung recently where it was like, initially it was like, oh, the traits, the toolsy guys, they go high. You can see it in a couple years. But unfortunately, in the NFL's world, when you lose, coaching staffs get turnover every year. And then you get a new regime with an inexperienced quarterback, and they're learning their second and third scheme as they get into the NFL. So really, these guys that have experience in the NFL or in college, have performed a lot better recently in the pros. We're seeing that with guys like Bo Nix, to name a couple. So yeah, we'll see what this class brings. But overall, as you mentioned a couple times already at the start of this prospect season, pretty uninspiring to say the least.
What would you say to the person that had Trey Lance and Anthony Richardson on their Dynasty Superflex team, like me?
Oh,
I was going to say,
they're not listening. If you had a Dynasty team Superflex and went all in on those two guys, you're done. You're like, I'm not playing this stupid game.
I quit. It is interesting. I went back and looked at Sam Darnold because he was incredibly young when he was drafted. He had 2 years. He started as a freshman and as a sophomore. And even that experience piece was like, those are bad Jets teams. I mean, it was terrible Adam Gase teams. And then we've kind of seen over time, like, okay, this is an NFL quarterback, just incredibly young, and his experience looked a little different. So we'll talk about those on the quarterback episode. If you wanted to know Fernando Mendoza's rushing numbers, they're not elite in terms of what we look for. Usually you want 15% or more of the team's rushing yards. That usually means you're going to run in the NFL for 400 or 500 yards. He saw less than 9% this year. So he didn't scramble as much. He's still going to be the number one overall pick, and we'll still talk about that. But for fantasy, what translates to being a quarterback one, this class might not even have one guy.
Yeah, they may not. The fact that like the way that the coaching situation went for the Raiders, things could have really shook differently for me, where I would have essentially no interest in Mendoza. Like let's say they hired a defensive guy, and you're like, just okay, this is an uninspiring hire. This team is not going to be putting up numbers. The fact that it is, I mean, well, at least at this point, right? It's supposed to be Kubiak, because I don't think they can't officially actually say anything. And we just got duped on the internet with some buttholes were saying that Cliff Kingsbury is hired. He's going to be the Giants OC, and only to go to sleep and wake up, and that was completely false. So we're operating under the assumption that Kubiak will be the coach for the Raiders. That makes Mendoza way more interesting to me. That maybe he can, like, with that scheme. I mean, Sam Darnold's on this list, right? Best college rushing yard share is 9.5. Like, not inspiring. Sam Darnold in this scheme for the Seattle Seahawks had fantasy value. So I'm more open now to Mendoza, assuming we get Coobs as the play caller.
Let's move to running backs, because I think the conversation around production, which is what we're focusing on, so not what they did in film. We're first starting about what did they do, what are the stats they put down. It really centers around rushing touchdowns. Jason's brought this up so many times. One of the stickiest stats from college to pros is, did you score rushing touchdowns? Were you involved inside the 5? You end up going there. So I know one of the names last year when we talked about Quinshon Judkins, it's like he was a touchdown machine in college when he was at Ole Miss and when he was at Ohio State. And then you saw with Cleveland, it was like, it wasn't a great season overall, and I know he ended up hurt, but he was the dude inside the 5, and that translated to his skill set to the pros. It's one of the things that we know we care about. So pure just how many rushing touchdowns did you score. We do have a metric that shows us here are the thresholds we care about at the running back position. So, Mike, why don't you kind of just go over quickly, like for a running back one for fantasy purposes, what are some of the thresholds we care about?
So, and when we say thresholds, we're talking about looking at guys who are already successful in the NFL, guys who are putting up running back one seasons. What did their best season in college look like? And we're saying thresholds as in not just raw numbers, because you get some offenses are just wild. Like the production they put up is their video game numbers. And then there's some guys that it's a much slower paced offense. So we want to know actual percentage of that team's offense. How important were you to it? And I mean, the all of these numbers are available in the Dynasty Pass, and this is these thresholds. You know, it's going to be interesting to see if they start moving with the changes in college, where expecting more guys to stay in college longer because they're getting paid and having a great time with their lives. But right now, the percentages that we're using when it comes to rushing, we want around 46% is like, that's a really good number. It's not that 41 is the end. It's just, these are just markers. And then receiving production, that part is pretty important to me as guys who actually catch the ball. It translates to more fantasy points because we get a half or a full point just for catching the ball compared to a rush. And you get more yards through the air. So we want that shared about 11%. And then it's nice to see them have a dominator rating above 30%, which a dominator is like their overall percentage of the team's yards and team's touchdowns, which it's hard to get there. Honestly, it really is. But we're looking for the guys we're taking in the first round, we want the best of the best. And then guys who are going in, I'm talking your rookie drafts. You're talking round 2 or 3, like, oh, this guy, maybe he's more interesting than this draft selection spot, because you're like, oh, go look what this kid did in college. He has a chance because he put up numbers similar to guys who already had success in the NFL.
Yeah, and to speak to that too, just on the share of the team's workload as far as the rush attempts, share of the receptions, that sort of stuff. Like in college, I think we brush by that too much a little bit, where it's so simple, yet it just tells us like the best players in college touch the ball the most. It is a sign that the the college coaches wanted to get the ball in this guy's hands as much as possible. The guy that right now in the NFL, that example sticks out to me is Chase Brown, where like coming out of college, he wasn't the cleanest prospect, right? Fell to day 3, but it's like if you go back to his production profile, you're like, dude, this guy can be a workhorse. He might be a little undersized, but he can be a workhorse, and he was. And now we're seeing what that is in the NFL, and that's just one example. But yeah, I think we get so excited with like yards per out run and zone yards per out run and all these sort of stuff, these like advanced analytics things that, don't get me wrong, do matter. But at the same time, some of these just raw, like how much of the team's production were you accounting for, tells us so much information about the player's talent level and how their coaching staff viewed them on their own roster amongst their teammates.
Yeah, there's so many fun statistics when it comes to running backs. We talk about explosive rush rate. We talk about forced missed tackle. The explosive rush rate is really fun because those are the ones that are going to show up in the highlights. This player ran for 15 plus yards. This was a breakaway touchdown. The best running backs in the NFL, that only happens on like 6 or 7% of their carries. So it's like you're taking such a small statistic and saying this is what this player is going to be, which doesn't happen a lot. We talked about Saquon, right? This year went from the most explosive season of all time in 2024 to only a handful of runs over 20 plus yards. In this class, if we're looking at just raw production at the running back position, especially running the ball, Emmett Johnson of Nebraska towers above the rest of the class. 62% of the team's attempts, 81% of the rushing yards. It's pretty wild stuff. Right now, he's looking as a day 2 prospect, and then we'll talk about it a little bit later. His receiving profile is also among the strongest of this group. So if we're just looking at which players here's all the thresholds we like, and we'll talk about Jeremiah Love. He's going to be up there too. But Emmett Johnson is an interesting name. I don't know if you've done any of his scouting yet, Mike, but he's a name that I have penciled down.
Yeah, let me, I'm trying to get to my notes, so why don't you talk in the meantime?
Okay, I will give you a statistic because he had over 1,400 rushing yards and he also had 370 receiving yards. There are only 8 running backs over the last decade that have been drafted on day 1 or 2 that have hit those marks. 1,400 rushing yards, 370 plus receiving yards. And the list is pretty great. Kareem Hunt, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Amarian Hampton, and then some guys named CEH and Zach Moss. But, yeah, so that, it can't be a perfect list.
It doesn't always work. Yeah, so Emmett Johnson, I have pretty decent marks for him. My first note is workhorse. 62% rush, 19% receiving of the receptions. Like that is outrageous. I felt like he had an okay burst. I don't know if he has the home run speed, like my evaluation of the tape. But I love how much he's using the receiving game. And my strongest note is watch him when he's like running and trying to change direction. Like all his upper body, it's very strange. He's like uses his upper body to change the momentum of where he's running, where a lot of guys, they get a little lower and your legs are doing it. He's got this really interesting herky-jerky running. Do you remember like big carries when Adrian Peterson would get loose and he's running, right? And it was more
upright.
He's very upright, and his upper body is helping propel him. It always looked a little funky. But so like I said, his lateral movement is it's weird, but he has a decent jump cut. It seems to work, but if people think that's an issue, I would not be surprised.
You heard it here first, folks. The next Adrian Peterson.
Well, no. I was saying,
seemed pretty clear to me,
trying to get you to visualize how funny it looks.
I will say, just on the earning touches in college is a skill standpoint, this man averaged over 24 touches, not like targets and carry, touches per game during his final year at Nebraska. So can he be a workhorse? Absolutely. I think of all the day 2 guys, I'm most excited about him early on in the process.
Yeah, as of right now, like he just went ahead of me in our mock at the 108. He's kind of landing at the end of first rounds at this point in the process. Let me be very clear. Just because people are saying this is where this player should go doesn't mean that's where they're going to go, a month or 2 from now. But he's in the mix. Jeremiah Love, we'll talk about him at length, but
he's very good.
Yeah,
very
56% of the team's rushing yards, and they have another running back we're going to talk about, Jadarian Price, that also ate into the workload. It's not like they had a capable running back that seems it's going to be drafted on day 2 as a part of the mix. That's interesting. I did want to mention Jaden Ott. He went to Oklahoma. I use that in air quotes this past year because apparently when he transferred, they didn't care about him. But he was at California when Fernando Mendoza was also there. He also had a really good Senior Bowl, which means he'll probably get some hype. But his production profile is very interesting if you care about 2 or 3 years ago. And then not very interesting if you look at this past year, which is kind of the conversation, right? Like you have to ignore certain parts and then emphasize other ones, but he's an interesting name. I did want to get your opinion, Betz, on the Penn State guys, you being the Penn State truther, because Nicholas Singleton just got injured and he's out for a while. Katron Allen is going to show up much better as a runner. And yet both of these guys have been around for so long. Like I knew the story that Penn State was like not a great passing offense. And then you've kind of given a little more context. They literally haven't had anybody else really for the last 4 or 5 years that have mattered at all other than Tyler Warren.
Yeah, we probably should have shared that news. Unfortunately, if you missed it, Nick Singleton broke a bone in his foot at the Senior Bowl practices this past week. So he's going to basically be sidelined through the entirety of the kind of pre-draft process. We won't get any NFL Combine data or anything like that on him, which is kind of a bummer. But yeah, they were basically the entire offense the last 4 years. And when Singleton came out, he was the number 1 running back recruit in the country. Allen joined him at Penn State, and then basically their entire offensive game plan was, let's play 1998 football, let's manage and be conservative, and really not drop back a ton. So the offense was super stale, which is why they never really had high-end wide receiver talent go there or stay there. People transfer out a lot. And outside of Tyler Warren, there's been like no pass catchers in the last 3 to 4 years to come out of there. It's because Singleton and Allen were the entire offense. And for context on that, Drew Aller in his career has attempted less than 23 passes per game in college, which is crazy. So they really were a conservative offense and just fed those two relentlessly. They were kind of viewed as like thunder and lightning type duo, where like Singleton was a little bit more explosive. Allen was the bigger kind of goal line type guy, but both I think are exciting prospects because I think that they could become workhorse type guys in the NFL. They had this ability to do it, even though they did share the load pretty much 50-50 at Penn State.
Yeah, when you look at Singleton's profile, he broke out as a freshman, which is, some of the stuff Mike was talking about earlier. If you're really good early on, then that's usually a sign. However, we usually want those players who break out early to declare within, the year or two later. And Singleton's been around for a while. I remember him as a recruit, and Betz, you confirmed this, like he was the number one running back recruit in the nation. So he's a really big deal coming out of high school. And had 12 touchdowns as a freshman. So that's really, really awesome. Stays in school. He almost came out last year. So we'll kind of have to wait on how teams evaluate him, injury stuff. He's an interesting name.
What's funny about
you don't think he's interesting?
You guys
save it for the running back episode.
Yeah. No takes. But what's funny about those two guys, if you guys recall 2 years ago in the college football playoff, they made a run. Drew Aller crapped his pants, threw an incredible interception, and they lose to Notre Dame. And so there was this whole like 2025 redemption tours, and they were like the laughing stock of college football this past year. So that's why those guys came back, was to try to make a run at the national championship. But obviously things went sideways real quick with that team.
The other name, this is a red flag that I want to bring up about one of the names, Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame. He's kind of competing as the RB2 or 3 in the class, which is interesting considering Love is the far and away, number one running back. But Jadarian Price, this final year, if you're just looking at what did you do this past year in your production, 113 carries, 674 yards, 11 touchdowns. So the 11 touchdowns is kind of propping it up. But I wanted to ask the question, has there been any running backs over the last decade who only ran for 674 yards? Like that feels very, very low, that were drafted on days 1 or 2. Like at first glance, does that sound like a terrible rushing yard share? It was 27% of the team's rushing yard share.
Yeah, it is strange. I have my concerns of like, thinking back of Bijan had Roschon Johnson behind him, and it was like he had his supporters. Like people were like, "No, guys, I'm telling you, like, just don't worry about how good Bijan was. Roschon is also very good." And then he goes like round 4 to the Bears, and I mean, whatever happened this year, like kind of cemented we have no interest in Roschon Johnson, that a 7th round Kyle Manun guy could come in and take your job. So I have concerns about that. Like I know that Bijan in front of Roschon was like, this guy is so truly dominant. But when you're watching Jeremiah Love play, you're like he's so good. He's just making the defense. I mean, I feel like you put Jeremiah Love out there, and then everyone gets so sad about themselves and just depressed that Price can come in and have success. Like that's how good Love is.
Yeah. Price has 15 total receptions in college through 3 years. So that's going to definitely, like, in the game that we play in fantasy, we're going to dock him there. But I looked over the last decade. Has there ever been a running back that was drafted rounds 1, 2, or 3 and saw less than 700 rushing yards their final season? And they weren't hurt. There's one. There's one guy. He was drafted in the first round.
First rounder?
It was Josh Jacobs.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
and that was because at Alabama, you always had this stable of running backs that also made it the NFL with him. So his final year, he only had 640 yards, 11 touchdowns in 15 games. So production-wise, Josh Jacobs was not a clean prospect, but when you go back to that year, He was
That was where you had to trust I remember, caping for Jacobs of like, analytics be darned. Just watch him play football.
And that year, the supply was so low. It was Jacobs, N'Keal Harry, Henderson was like a top 5 pick in Dynasty rookie drafts, Darrell Henderson. It was just not a great year for offensive players. Yeah, I know. Betz is shaking. Dave Montgomery.
Just so funny in hindsight.
Yeah, that was the supply at the time to think
Darnell
about.
Anderson.
that he was like, oh man, I want this player as a top 5 player. Last thing on running backs, and then we'll move on. I mentioned Emmett Johnson as a receiver. Over the last decade, we only have 9 running backs who have caught 40 passes and were drafted on days 1 or 2. It's a great list. All of them finished as RB1s in full PPR. Okay, all of them except for CEH. And I blame Mahomes on that one, but it's a really good list for Emmett Johnson to be a part of. And I would say right now,
I blame CEH for not being good enough. You're blaming Mahomes? Mahomes did everything he could. Or you're blaming Mahomes that the story of him telling Andy Reid to select Clyde?
Yes.
Okay.
But the name that I haven't figured out what I think about him is Jonah Coleman out of Washington. His receiving profile is fine. He's kind of seen as the RB2 in the class. Production-wise, I think he's fine as a prospect, but I don't feel like he's a home run hitter. Mike?
I thought we were trying to save most of our takes.
So far, everything I've heard from Jonah Coleman is he's the next running back in this class you want. And I just don't know if I feel that as like, oh, he's for sure the dude based on production alone.
As of right now, he is for me.
Okay.
I'll put it that way. But we are like, I feel like Betz, you were on my side. Like last year, we had a weight gate going on where Devin Neal was claiming they claimed that Devin Neal was like a certain weight, and we were like, there's no way. There's no way he weighs that much. And then he got to the combine and he was somewhat close to it. And you're like, okay, because I think he was like a 220 list and then weighs in around 215 or something. Coleman has that too. Like I keep seeing him listed as 220. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, maybe it's just the color of his uniform making him look a little smaller to me. But I am fascinated to know what Coleman weighs in at.
Yeah, and these numbers, right, that like we have on the site and everything, and that you see on the internet, they should all be taken with a grain of salt until we get the real.
Who was the kid? We just had one.
Diego Pavia?
Yeah, who was like, he's 6'2" or whatever. Like, and he's like 5'9".
Yes,
like, guys,
you want to take official measurements from either the Senior Bowl if they were there or the Combine. That's what matters.
It's just so insane. Why? I feel like I have to soapbox this every year. I don't understand. Why is the college listing these players like, he's 235? And you're like, oh, it turns out he's 220. You're like, he's 6'2". He's 5'9". Like, that is such a massive difference. And you think people aren't going to find out? Like, you're going to get away with this? They're like, no, that guy's definitely 6'2". Look at him. Like, it's so weird, man. So weird.
Maybe somebody just made an error, like whoever was entering on the website.
They make the error every year.
Oh, it was supposed to be a 2. I accidentally put a 3. Yeah, who knows? But don't trust that stuff until you get the NFL Combine. To your point on Coleman and kind of like Kyle, like you said, like he's vying for the RB2 in this class that is consensus viewed. Kind of the same thing what we saw with who did we just talk about from Notre Dame? Jadarian Price. I think there's a lot, like, obviously Love is RB1 and that's not going to change. Outside of that, you could put the next like 5 names in any order that you prefer, and I would say that's not crazy. And I think that speaks to what this class is at running back, where there's some really strong production profiles. There's a lot you can poke holes in. There's question marks on, is this guy going to go day 2 or day 3? And all of that will obviously get sorted out over the next few weeks. But I just want to point out, like, I think that second tier, whatever it is for you in this running back class, is very interchangeable, and I think honestly, like for me, might change multiple times this offseason.
When you're in your rookie drafts, what's going to happen is Love's going to go 1. You're going to see a run of 6 receivers, 5 or 6 of them, and then everyone's going, what am I going to do next? And I say that as somebody who's currently on the clock at 109, and going back and forth trying to host a podcast too, but that's where we're at with running backs, where you could have a guy you like a little bit more. Like Emmett Johnson right now, production-wise, would be an easy one for me to click the button and say, oh, well, I can justify that at this point in the process and say, look at what he did. He's off the board. Jonah Coleman's off the board. And then from there, I'm like, I like some of these guys. I don't know if I like them as the 109, where in years past, we could take that guy at like 204 or 205 because they're all in the same tier. So there is still a lot to sort out, and that's what's great about this process. We're looking at production. Next week, we're going to talk about film and some of these players, some deeper names, maybe some sleepers that Mike has up his sleeve at running back.
Ooh, maybe.
We'll see. All right, let's take a quick break and talk wide receivers. All right, moving on to wide receivers. We do have some thresholds that we care about when looking at wide receiver ones for fantasy. What do they do in college, and how does that translate to the pros? And the best part about wide receivers, there's not a ton of categories for us to really, truly say, you got to go in all these directions of what they did with contested catches. And it's like, what was your share of the receiving yards, the receptions, the touchdowns, and how does that translate to a dominator rating? So we really want it to be above 30% for all of those. And if you really think about in the pros, the best wide receivers end up seeing a target share, 25 to 30%. You're an alpha. If you're targeted on 30% of the routes, you're insane. You're incredibly good. If you see 25 to 30% of the first read targets, you're a really, really good player. So those are the thresholds that we really care about. This year, I said earlier, I feel like there's a variety of prospects. If you want a big guy, if you want a slot guy, if you want a guy that's versatile, if you want a gadget player in Zachariah Branch, like you can find that in the NFL. So my first thought before I went through all the production is, I don't know what NFL teams need. Because some team might be like, I like Zachariah Branch. I want a player who can do everything I need in the slot, and we give him screens. I like that type of player. Where I look at him and go, that is a terrible production profile. If you have an ADOT of 5, that's really bad. You're Kadarius Toney, or you are some of these other players that haven't worked in the NFL. But NFL teams might feel differently and say, that's a day 2 player to me. So wide range of outcomes here. Any names that stand out to you, Betz, you want to bring up in terms of receptions, yardage share that kind of pop off the page?
I mean, can we just start the excitement now?
Just
for
go,
my guy.
go for it.
I'm a lemon guy.
Oh,
Screw the limes. Mekhi Lemon is one of my favorite players in the class.
This is citrus warfare?
Oh, absolutely. You think you like limes, Mike? Come on. We all know it's lemon over here. There's a lot of debate, which is actually really fun this time of year to have. Like, who's wide receiver 1 in this class? Is it Lemon? Is it Tyson, Carnell Tate? Kyle was alluding to this at the start of the show with like a guy that, man, I haven't found any negatives in his profile yet. And I think what you were talking about, Kyle, was Mekhi Lemon out of USC, who you look at his production profile from a receptions, yardage, everything is there. But he does have a little bit of a later breakout age, which I think is maybe the yellow flag that you could, if you wanted to throw it in there, you could. Otherwise, I think of the first round prospects, he comes with perhaps not the highest ceiling, but probably the most stable production profile and maybe the highest floor in the class if you compare the top 3 or 4 wide receivers. So I'm a huge fan of him. I was watching him a little bit yesterday. Really fun prospect coming out of USC, but his production profile looks awesome. Final year had almost 80 catches, over 1,100 yards. So definitely something you want to take a look at in the Dynasty Pass.
Yeah, early on in the process, I feel like he has the combination of the highest floor, and if you're playing in full PPR, I feel like he just translates the easiest to the NFL of you're going to crush zone coverage. So I think Lemon feels, to me, early in the process, like my favorite too, of if I was picking someone for the NFL. Now that is different than who's going to go first. I think it'll probably end up being Tyson or Tate that end up going first. Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State, Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. Any of those numbers, Mike, that stand out to you from among the top guys, from dominator rating, touchdowns, any of those?
It's nice for wide receivers that there's not a lot, but you have to, for wide receivers, you really have to put the entire puzzle together of, I don't love guys who are only 50-50. Well, like, not, only is being hyperbolic, but like they're used that way a lot. Like the I think the verdict is still out on Rome Odunze, but like I wasn't as in on Rome in this part of the process as there was other people out there that I really respect their opinion. They loved Rome. I just like to me, it's a red flag if that's where if bully ball is how you're really getting it done. Like then you better be a big bad bully because you could bully college kids, but you can't bully the 1% of the 1% in the NFL. And then guys where too much of it is the yards after catch with the low ADOT, when that can get out of control. It's like, so you really, when it comes to wide receivers, you really have to have a good marriage of the analytics and the film. And in the end, during the NFL season, you know, I don't have time for college from the footballers. So I'm learning all these guys, you know, I'm reading their names fresh. And I got to say the most devastating part of the wide receiver process so far is the realization that his name is not Kevin Conception from Texas A&M, because, and I guess he goes by KC, but it's like on mock draft database. Shout out to them again. It's Kevin Conception. I know it's spelled, you know, Concepcion, but it's like Kevin Conception is just the alliteration, how intense that name is. It was going to be great. And then I got shot down, and it was like finding out it's not Romeo Dubs. It's not Devin A. Chain. Like, it's like, oh man.
That is a big part of my process, to be honest.
This is what I bring to the table, guys.
I'm with you, because I usually get a list for our development team, you know, November, December. And part of that process is who are all the fun names that we get to talk about?
Yeah.
Like, not just the production profile, but like who's a really fun name. So, for instance, we're not going to be able to talk about a wide receiver out of Tennessee named Squirrel White because he's not going to make the cut. But he's a fun name.
Man. Come on, Squirrel.
Man.
Get your act together. Another thing that's really hard, you talked about bully ball. I was having a conversation with someone earlier today about contested catches, and it's a really cool skill to have. Like, Puka just set the record of contested catches this past year. He had 27. I mean, if you think about Puka, not the biggest guy, but when the ball's in the air,
right,
just a bully, fearless,
yes,
all that stuff. A lot of these guys, if you look at what their contested catch rate was this year, it's like, oh, it's 48%. It's, 50. Most of them had maybe 14 to 15 targets that were called contested catches. That's not a very big sample size to make a call on a player based on they're good or bad in the NFL based on 15 targets.
Right. And where another layer of where I think that when that's like your calling card from college, it's a chicken or egg thing, is like, are you just really good at the 50-50 ball? So that's what's going on, or you can't get open. You know what I mean? You're like, these DBs are able to hang with you. You're not creating any separation
right
on your 9 routes. So like, that's where I start to get concerned with a wide receiver turning into like a true dominant wide receiver 1. Not that you don't have a place. Not everyone could be a wide receiver 1, and we need to have production coming from our 3s and 4s. But right now at the beginning of the process, you're like, I want to hit on the best wide receiver, the guy who turns out to be the best one for fantasy football. So just laying out some red flags.
I think the guy in this class that I know we're going to talk about all these guys in detail, that initially in my mind kind of not only 50-50, but like his calling card is like big body in the red zone, can win downfield, contested catches, is Denzel Boston out of Washington. It's just kind of funny how the NFL is changing so much, right? Where like previously, before all the too high stuff, like big X receivers was super valuable in the league 8-9 years ago. And then you kind of seen this trend where it's like, okay, now defenses are playing all zone, they're taking away big plays, they're trying to keep everything in front. And then you have kind of these players that just win in the intermediate areas that are way more valuable for us in fantasy than the previous, hey, I hope he catches a 50-yard touchdown here, because it just doesn't happen in the NFL nowadays outside of a rare play here or there. So the classic like DK Metcalfs of the world, Cortland Sutton type traditional X guys win downfield, it's not really a thing in the NFL anymore. Not that it won't have value to an NFL team for being able to fill a role, but for like fantasy, those types of guys are just kind of slowly going by the wayside. And it might change. It's the NFL is cyclical, how it changes every year over the course of a couple of years. But right now, in today's kind of world, those guys aren't really winning in the NFL. So it's interesting. We'll see where he lands.
Yeah, Kenny Golladay killed it. He's the one that a couple years ago
he ruined
got
everything.
a bag and then just completely ruined it. But it does give an example of players like Nico Collins coming into the league was, oh, this is just a big body dude. That's all he's going to be. He's just going to be, a 9-route guy. And yet, over the last couple of years, it's like this guy wins in the intermediate area, like you were talking about. Like there's nuance to his game. He's not just a contested catch guy. So it's a conversation I think we're going to keep having for wide receivers of, what does your skill set say you can be good at? What's your, trump card? Like, what can you say? I'm awesome at this. Does that matter? And then the conversation I want to have about one of these players, I'm bringing up a red flag, okay, is if you're really good on a per route basis, that's awesome. That's like the targets per route run stuff that we talk about all the time. But we also care about overall production. Like, what happened at the end of the year? Did you end up with, 800 receiving yards, or was it 400, whatever it is? Carnell Tate right now, out of Ohio State, is the wide receiver 1 on NFL mock draft database. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He crushed man, he crushed zone. Like, I think he's going to be a good NFL player.
Where'd he go to school, Kyle?
He went to Ohio State, so he's going to be good.
Okay,
right?
we're done here. Nothing more to see.
Scout the helmet. Move on.
If your helmet says Ohio or LSU, I'm gonna take the chance.
So his final year, which is kind of what I'm bringing up, he only had 51 receptions. You can explain that away by his teammate Jeremiah Smith, but 51 receptions is
11 games played.
Is really low. I sorted by receptions per game. Okay, that's 4.6 is what he had, and I looked at over the last 6 years. If you were a first-round wide receiver, did you catch at least 5 balls per game? Okay. Here are the list of players that are below 5. Carnell Tate at 4.6, Quentin Johnston at 4.3, Matthew Golden at 3.6, Jalen Reagor at 3.6, Henry Ruggs at 3.3.
Stop.
Oof.
Just stop.
I need to bring it up because if I'm looking at pure production, he had 9 touchdowns, 875 receiving yards, and yet not the counting stats that we care about. That doesn't mean he won't be good in the NFL. I just want to bring it up as this player is being mocked to go like 5th overall right now in a lot of mocks. That's not the production profile we usually see of a Jamar Chase or these other dudes who end up going there. So
that's a great point. I mean, it's definitely something to consider
because I think, right.
I think usually what happens in the NFL draft, mock draft circles, and we as Dynasty players see, oh, dude, this guy's going to go top 10. Like, I mean, and immediately in your head, you're like, okay, top rookie pick. It has to be, right? And most of the time, in a vacuum, that will work out more often than not. Of course, there's busts every year. But I do think it's worth discussing. And it's nuanced, right? It's like, well, okay, of course, Ibuka was there and Marvin Harrison Jr. was there and he's the next guy and he's playing next to Jeremiah Smith. And so, of course, context is needed. But I do agree with you. I was like, oh, I was hoping to log in and see like this guy was dominating. He was putting up a ton of production and he had a good year. But like you said, just for top 10, top 15 NFL draft pick standards, it's definitely not what we're used to. So it's going to be something to consider throughout the offseason here.
Yeah, that's the way you throw it out there. You say, hey, I saw this is different than what we're used to for this player, and we kind of move on. The other thing we usually care about is, did you command targets? We talk about targets per route run. If you were a first-round wide receiver, the average is 28%. So were you target on 28% of your routes? In rounds 2 and 3, it's a little bit lower, around 27%. But if you are sub 20%, that is a giant red flag. That at the college level, like Adonai Mitchell, it's like, oh, this player isn't really the best in terms of this category. And the player that I was bringing up today, his name's Jeremy Bernard out of Alabama. You hear Alabama, and so he's another player that kind of ends up getting lumped into the other Alabama wide receivers. But he was only targeted on 20% of his routes. His yards per route run of 1.70 would be the second lowest of any player taken in rounds 1, 2, or 3 over the last decade. So is he that guy? We'll see. It's just another name that I want to bring up, and maybe my opinion changes. but he's a top 60 overall player right now on boards. And based on production alone, I would say he's more like 80, 90. That's unpopular to say right now, but that's kind of where he's at.
You must love saying it then.
I just like bringing up counterpoints. It's fun.
Kyle, always here to argue. I mean, classic Kyle.
I'm here to bring up the stuff that nobody wants to say because it's not going to be popular. And I'll get buried. That's fine.
I do think like the points you're bringing up, and we're going to talk about, like I said, all these guys in full detail throughout the next several weeks. It's so important to just take a step back and be like, well, what if this matters? What if this goes wrong? Because it's so easy with every prospect, every single year, and every cycle to be like, this guy could be the next this. I love this part of his game, but rarely do people talk about like, is anybody else concerned that Carnell only had 51 catches and he's a top 10 pick? Like, stuff like that. So I love the conversation. I think it's good to make sure that you're viewing this and taking a step back and not just getting so locked into a take and not changing your opinion.
Yeah. And last little thought, we won't go into tight ends here. You can check all those production profiles out in the Dynasty Pass. But Kenyon Sadiq has kind of been locked in as a first-round pick for a while. And his production profile, I stacked it up against all the other first-round guys. It's okay. It's not the level of the Bowers, Warren, Loveland, Pitts. It's more in the second tier of guys that were drafted in round one, like TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Kincaid, David Njoku. So from an early standpoint, I feel like Kenyon Sadiq is kind of like, well, I need a tight end. I'm in the first round. He's tempting for me here at the 109, but he's not as clean a prospect as some of the other guys because Loveland and Warren commanded ridiculous amounts of targets in college.
Right.
He's not going to be used the same. So any final thoughts here, Mike?
The final thoughts here are, I got to stick up for my co-host Matthew Betz, who says, Kyle, Bryce Lance. We moved through the first wide receiver look, and you didn't even bring up that Trey Lance, NFL superstar, his brother is a wide receiver, and he's going to be in the draft.
First round pick. My first round pick, I mean undrafted.
You think Lance is kind of just like poking everybody on the team, like, my brother, he can ball. We're like, dude, we do not trust you at all, Trey.
Do you guys remember?
Trey,
do you guys know the meme of like the guy leaning forward at the edge of his chair? You know what I'm talking about? A couple of years ago, I was watching. It was like a random night, and North Dakota State was on. I was like, football on, sure. It's like a Wednesday or something random. I'm like, I'll throw this game on, see what's going on. And I hear Bryce Lance makes the catch. I was like, wait, Lance. And I move forward a little bit in the chair, lean forward. They start talking about Trey Lance's little brother. I'm like, this is it. The next guy is here.
We found him.
Even though Trey didn't work out yet.
We have identified. Hey, Trey Lance with his size and athleticism at a different position, it probably works out.
Hopefully.
I have definitely
Imagine him playing wide receiver, right?
We're about to find out.
He could probably do it all. He's only 25. He's technically not under contract with the Chargers yet. I mean, if a team is looking
for a free agent?
He is a free agent.
Oh, baby. You're telling me Trey Lance might be able to go to a quarterback competition?
Vikings need a quarterback.
Yeah, in like
Jets need a quarterback.
We are
Arena
so
League.
back.
Sadly.
We are so back.
Okay, we're getting this right here. Do you think that this man is on an NFL roster in August?
Yes.
Trey Lance? Yeah, I do.
100%.
I think he'll have a backup job.
Okay, yeah. Do you think he's in a roster in September after cuts and everything else?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
100%.
This is the bar we're at now. Are you on the roster?
Yeah, Kyle, this is all we can do now.
Let us have this.
It couldn't be more over.
Episode. Make sure you check out ultimatedraftkit.com, the Dynasty Pass, and enjoy the big game, as they say.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.